Welcome to another edition of the 498 Show. I'm Tony Palmieri from the Communication Studies program at UW Oshkosh, joined today by one of my all-time greatest students who's become just a really great friend. And we're going to hear the story of how a guy from southern Wisconsin comes to UW Oshkosh, teaches for a few years, starts a company that has brought so much joy to thousands of people for just about 30 years now, and has also helped companies raise millions of dollars for charitable causes. And that guest's name is Matt King. Matt, thank you for being here.
Good to be here.
Let's talk about your story. First of all, your company is Game Show America. What year did you found the company?
1996.
Yeah, so it is just about, this is your 30th anniversary.
May 4th will be 30 years.
And let's talk about your biography a little bit. Where are you from originally?
Originally from Racine.
From Racine,
Yep.
Wisconsin. And what got you from Racine to Oshkosh?
We were looking at different colleges, and I wanted something. I looked at Madison, I looked at Milwaukee, I looked at Whitewater, and came into Oshkosh, and the vibe just felt right. I mean, I liked the way that the dorms were set. I liked the fact that it was a smaller campus. We went to Madison, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like so big. And I was at the time I was a coder, a basic programming coder, and I was looking to go into computers. So I know that Oshkosh was not like the number one school for doing that, but I'm like, maybe there's other opportunities. Maybe there's something I'm overlooking here. I think I fit in pretty quickly there.
Yeah. What were your parents doing at the time for like an occupation?
My mom, she was just doing, she was really a stay-at-home mom because that's, the boomer generation and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So she stayed home to raise the kids, but she had a part-time job. She worked at a convenience store. And my dad was a firefighter, also an instructor for the fire service. But his main job was that he was director of loss prevention at Chrysler, from American Motors to Chrysler in Kenosha. And I always wanted to make as much money as he did one day, And
Yeah,
so
sure.
I got to visit him. I got to see all the computer stuff at his work. So I was really excited about what he did and how he knew the Kenosha plant inside and out as far as how cars were made. It was pretty cool.
How cool. Yeah, because Racine, Kenosha was a big auto industry town at
Oh
the
yeah,
time, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. So your parents were supportive of your coming to Oshkosh.
Yeah, they knew it was more business, but they thought, well, we know he's into this computer stuff, but maybe he'll get the business bug. And I'm like, let's see what happens. Watch the space.
And so what happened in studying computers? Something got you from that to communication. So how did you make the switch from computers to communication?
I tell this story a lot. I had my advisor was also my first computer teacher because there was a computer class that I took, and this was my freshman year. Day one, he introduces the entire syllabus of programs that we're going to have to do all semester, and there's like 30 pretty decent, respectable programs in there that you had to make computers do certain things. And he's like, "No, I don't expect you to know all this today." He says, "But you're going to have the whole semester to learn all this." Well, what he didn't know about me was that my parents had bought me a VIC-20 computer, a Commodore 64 computer, an Apple II computer, and I was already writing programs in BASIC and compiling them into machine language. I started that in 8th grade. And so
Amazing.
when he shows me the syllabus, I'm like, yeah, I got this. And so over the first weekend, I finished every program, and I handed it to him on that following Monday. And he goes, "What's this?" I said, "That's everything." He's like, "That's not possible." I'm like, "Oh, what it is," and I got it done. And he's like, "Well, let's go to my office and let's talk." He's like, "What do you really want to do with this major?" And I said, "Well," I said, "there's really not a computer major." I said, "So it has to be math." At the time, because we were using 1967 VAX terminals. I'm sure they
Oh,
still exist there somewhere.
I'm sure they do.
Had the green or the orange screens or whatever. And he's like, "What do you want to do with this?" And I said, "I want to design video games." Now, my video game experience at that time was Atari. Atari is actually coming back. We'll get to that. But he's like, he goes, I think these games are a fad. You don't understand. Computers are made for like databasing and spreadsheets and word processing and printing and blah, blah, blah. He goes, I don't think he says, I think you'd be wasting your time. And I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking this is coming from my advisor, right? So I'm like, well, can I, test out of the class, which I did. And I changed to education. I pretty much
Mhm.
went instantly to education, which was English and speech. I liked both of those. I was really good at both of those in high school and even middle school. And so I decided to pursue the path of teaching. Um, and while I'm kind of upset that he said that. I'm actually grateful. I really look back at like, what's the silver lining in this? Is that I probably, had he embraced it, I probably would have been stuck in a cubicle writing code all of my life, which wouldn't necessarily have been bad because I understand what the video game industry is worth.
Oh my goodness.
Um, but now here we are 30 years later, and I'm hiring programmers to work for me. So,
So
uh,
I still find it just mind-boggling that someone teaching computers in the 1980s thought that the gaming was a fad. That's just, I don't know if I'd call that pedagogical malpractice or what, but that's just unbelievable. But we are thankful in communication because it got you over to us. So
yeah,
what was your experience studying at that time? We called it speech.
yeah.
What was your experience in the speech department at the time?
I had some good experiences and bad ones. I know that when we've gotten together, I've told you about some of the bad ones, which I won't necessarily regurgitate here. But I had a couple of professors that I thought were that I think kind of had it out for me. But then there was those professors like yourself that just opened my eyes to things. Like I had like until I took one of your classes, I was like, oh my God, am I really leading a sheltered life here? Because I didn't get out and do much. I mean, like I said, I was kind of I would stay at home and I would, I could write Pac-Man and it worked and it was fun and I was happy with that. But all of a sudden I'm like, I'm learning about public discourse and really important things that shaped this country. And I'm going, I'm really kind of getting off on this information. This is really kind of turning me on. So I wanted and craved more of it. And that's when I realized that even though I may get a degree, I think I'm going to be an eternal student because I want to learn this stuff. And
My
so,
memory
yeah.
of you, Matt, we're talking like 1990, 1991, and I was a junior faculty member. I was quite young myself at the time. When I started here, I was, I think, 28 years old, so I was still relatively young. But my memory of you is you never missed a class. You were always heavily, heavily engaged in whatever class was. And I can't tell you how valuable that is. Every instructor loves to have at least a handful of people in that room that are always ready. And you were one of those people, always ready to engage and interact. Always wearing black too, I remember
Oh,
at
I
the
had
time.
so much. I still have a lot of.
That was that was like the Matt King brand at the time,
Yeah, that
right?
was me.
Yeah. And I do remember, maybe you could talk about this. You took one of my classes called History of American Public Address, and I assigned people random speeches, and I assigned you a Civil War era Congressman abolitionist Thaddeus Stevens from
Oh yeah.
Pennsylvania,
I still
which
have that paper.
I mean, in this day and age, right, where we can't even assign papers anymore because we get this AI generated bullshit back. Can you talk about what that Stevens paper like did for you?
That I attribute that to really opening my eyes as to what our country does and what the narrative of our country is, which is actually two different things. I spent countless hours in government libraries going over things, and as I'm reading some of these, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like the whole concept of what Thaddeus, I mean, he would be classified, well, he was classified as a radical Republican because he wanted to follow
Yes.
the Constitution to the letter of the law. And so now you've got um, an assassination, you've got a civil war, you've got an assassination, and you basically have the South kind of coming back to the United States by not really what should have happened, but more like just kind of a bridge it, kind of like a series of apologies while Congress was out of session. And all of a sudden, oh, well, everybody's, happy and ready to go again. And it's like, that's not really the case. And the evidence of this did not really show up until I became a teacher down in South Carolina in 1992
Oh,
when I was teaching at a Sylvan Learning Center, and I love Sylvan Learning Centers, and most often I was teaching English and speech. But this particular day, they wanted me to sub for history, and I said, just show
hmm.
me the material, and I'll happily do this. And I read the material from a McGraw-Hill textbook, which was not the McGraw-Hill textbook that I learned when I was in grade school and middle school, because it was a complete whitewashing of the Civil War. And I'm not making this up. And I
No,
brought
I
the attention to this to my supervisor. And I said, I can't teach this. And she's like, why? I said, because it's wrong. And she's like, what do you mean it's wrong? And I said, it's absolutely wrong. I said, the term slavery is not mentioned in this book at all. Paid migrant workers is what I saw. And I'm like, and I said, something that you don't know about me. I happen to do this really cool paper on a guy named Thaddeus Stevens. They never heard of him. And
of
so I
course
had
not.
to literally go over my paper. And had I not, I probably just would have gone along with it because that realization was so black and white to me anyway, by reviewing all the material from a government library and now seeing a textbook that is in publication, realizing that McGraw-Hill at the time, and the lawsuit actually wasn't settled until 2007 to get that out of the textbook and other things. I'm like, oh my gosh, was this an eye opener? So it made me want to pay attention. It made me want to be aware of what's going on and not just take what's in the book as gospel, because it wasn't.
Exactly.
So for that, I am eternally grateful.
So not only did you pick up some of those really good critical thinking skills, but you've told this story many times also. You also became somewhat of an entrepreneur while you were at UW Oshkosh. Can you talk about what you used to do in the residence halls, making your cheese sandwiches?
Oh gosh, yeah, I was a delivery driver at first for a Chinese restaurant. Absolutely loved it. It was a lot of fun till I lost my brakes one night and ended up on somebody's front porch. Then it wasn't fun. Um, I got my car fixed, but I'm like, I think I can do something on my own. And so one night in my dorm room, I had just like a little single burner, and I think a lot of this was actually allowed back then. At the time, I know you could actually smoke in your dorm room,
Oh yeah,
which I know you can't do now. Um, but I had a little burner, a little fry pan, and a spatula, which I actually just used for breakfast this morning. It was my mom's spatula she gave me. And I was making a grilled cheese sandwich one night, but just I added some spices to it to give it a little bit of zest and a little bit of zing. And my next door neighbor, who was definitely into smoking a number of alternative things, he's like, "Man, something really smells good over there." And so I'm like, "I'll make you one." And he's like, "Dude, this is such a great sandwich." It was just a grilled cheese sandwich. And he goes, "Well, how much?" And I said, "I just made it up." I'm like, "Well, $3 a piece or two for $5." And he goes, "I'll take two of them because $5 was easy." And so I sold them two sandwiches for $5 cash, and I'm like, oh, I get some drinking money for the week. And so let's see if more people want to do this. I'm like, could you tell your friends about it? So he starts telling his friends, and I went to the store and I bought a couple loaves of, Wonder Bread. I got some butter and I got some Kraft singles and some spices. And I just started, I'd come home from the bars a little bit early and I'd start making these things. And this line would start showing up outside my dorm room for people that wanted to buy these grilled cheese sandwiches. Now, to be fair, I should have had like a food truck, but that wasn't even in my head. I'm like, I can do this in my dorm room. Don't even have to leave this. And I was making about $150 a week.
Amazing.
from students just selling grilled cheese sandwiches. And I'm like, I think I like being my own boss. I quit my other job and I was getting paid more doing my own thing than I was getting paid and having to, all that stuff. So I really kind of, got the entrepreneur bug thinking, well, this is step one. And I didn't really know what step two was because I was having too much fun doing this.
Right. So then you do that's just an incredible story. So then you do graduate, you do go teaching, some in South Carolina. You also were teaching in Wisconsin, I believe, right,
Yes,
for a
yes,
while.
yeah, yeah.
And so it is your teaching experience that ultimately led you to creating Game Show America. So tell us the story about what happened in your classroom that got you to discover the power of games.
Okay. Well, there is I was a DJ on weekends. So there was a club that I was DJing at, and actually in Oshkosh it's called the Bar now,
Yeah,
but a long time ago it was called Decades. And last time I was in Oshkosh I visited, and the same equipment that I put in there is still in there. The same
amazing.
amplifiers, the same turntables, the same mixer. It's crazy that it's all still there and still working. Anyway, that was a long time ago. Long time ago. But I had experience at a DJ convention and that they were doing interactive games. And so I'm like, okay, this is fine, but not really DJing. I really enjoyed teaching. Well, my kids did not like studying for tests. They're like, all right, we're gonna have a quiz today, and the kids would just bomb on. I'm like, well, didn't anybody study? Oh, we didn't like doing that. So I'm like, I got to do something to get these kids engaged. Now I was teaching in Edgerton at a place called Oaklawn Academy, which actually this last year just closed up. All the students from Oaklawn were from all Spanish and Latin American companies or countries, and they came from all over the world. And I had fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth graders as my students. None
Mm,
of them. Okay, this is middle school and the top end of grade school, but none of them wanted to. Even the good kids didn't really. They tried to get away with not studying. And so I'm like, something's got to give here. So I went to the AV room that they had, which was very limited in its, capabilities. But I saw this box and all this dust on it. It said Quizzer on the side. I'm like, let's see what this is. I open it up, and it's this big old brown box that's using telephone cable for those that are old enough to know what a telephone was. That it was connected to the wall with a cord. Uh, and there were 16 little outlets. And in my classroom, I had 16 kids. It was a nice small class. And so I went to Radio Shack and I bought, because the cables were really short. So I bought cables and I wired up a buzzer to every desk and Velcroed it to the desk. And then the kids come in the next day, and on the board, I drew a Jeopardy board on my chalkboard. I didn't even have a whiteboard at this time. It was still a chalkboard. So it was nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, prepositions, etc. And they're like, Mr. King, what is this? And I said, well, we're going to do test review today. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, we're going to play it like a game. So everybody's got a buzzer. Somebody's going to give me the first. I'll take nouns for 100, and this is points now. I had all their names on the chalkboard. So what happened is when they got an answer correct, they got the points associated with that, and all the kids could all play at the same time. Some kids got a lot of points if they could buzz in faster, but the whole idea behind this, and this was the idea kind of behind my Sylvan Learning Center, is that these points were a reward for knowledge. And so these kids wanted to win this game. These kids were so competitive. And so at the end of the day, they're like, well, we got all these points. What do we do with these? Well, if you got a C, you could essentially, with points, buy your way to a B. If you're a B, you could buy your way to an A. If you're failing, you could definitely not fail this class. And if you're an A student, I've got this box of stuff that you could buy with your points. They went nuts over this. And so every Friday, Mr. King, can we review tests? And I'm like, are you kidding? This is music to my ears. We had
love
the
it.
highest test scores in the entire school. And then
Oh,
the
love it.
principal walks by one day and he sees these kids having a great time. He's like, Mr. King, I need to speak with you out in the hall. And the kids are like, ooh, busted, right? So I got into the hall. He's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm teaching. He goes, doesn't look like it. I'm like, sit in the back of the room and watch this. Well, because the principal watched it, now this Quizzer thing, I couldn't keep it because nobody else was using it at the time. So I had to put it on a checkout and return system. So I bought my own, just so I always had one. And
Right.
every Friday was and sometimes multiple times during the week, but knowledge was happening. These kids were learning and they didn't even realize it. They were intentionally studying. And I'm like, I kind of won this one. But I still to this day have kids that found me on social media and thank me for that. Because they're
It's
like,
incredible.
we remember that and we've instilled that value upon some of our kids, like our kids, we want them to kind of learn without thinking about it. And so I'm grateful. That's not all of them, obviously, but there's enough of them. I made a difference to one. I made a difference, and I'm grateful for that.
Well, you inspired me. I mean, in my in-person classes now, I don't know if you've heard of the Kahoot app. It's
Oh yeah.
kind of like a, right. So what I'll do is I'll say, okay, whoever wins the Kahoot quiz is going to get a Wisconsin Blue Book, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
and you would be amazed at how many students get motivated to want to do well on those quizzes because they really want to win this thing. And I got that from you. I'm always thinking, okay, what would Matt King do in a situation like this? What you would do is find a way for people to have fun while they're learning.
Hmm.
And that's what so many educators miss. I mean, education, whether it's kindergarten or PhD level, does not have to be some dour, dry thing.
No.
People can have fun and learn. I mean, that's basically Socratic dialogue if you think about it.
Hmm.
So you had the DJing experience, you knew how to move a crowd.
Yep.
You then get the gaming experience in your elementary school experience. How then did you make the leap to creating Game Show America?
Well, I was happy being a teacher. I loved watching that aha moment. That's I think why most people become teachers because it's not really about the money. I was making a whopping $18,000 a year, and then I taught summer school so I could boost that up to like $21,000 a year. Ooh,
I
let me
know the
tell you.
feeling.
But I'm like, there's got to be more. Well, DJing I knew could make some money, and then I'm like, what if I merge these two things together and offered an alternative to music? So to get my chops wet, I started doing. I bought this device called Game Show Mania. Now the company still exists out there, and they make a game show device. But I had theirs, and then I also made my own because I wanted it to be a little bit different, and I wanted to not be like everybody else. And I started going to restaurants and clubs and bars and things, offering it as an alternative to like a DJ or karaoke or a band because it's a different level of entertainment. Now today, you go out to a bar and you got trivia night. I was the first trivia night way back in whatever year that was. But I didn't actually call it Game Show America until 1999. I started in 1996. And in 1999, I bought the name Game Show America. That's when we went on the web.
Hmm.
But we had because I was doing bars, our first game was called Buzz, B-U-Z-Z. And so the first game was you had to spell B-U-Z-Z exclamation point. So the first to five wins. And I still have an old T-shirt that says my name of my DJ company was Audio Excellence. And since I didn't really have a game show presence yet, it was Get Buzzed with Audio Excellence. And it worked. We were making $600 cash at a club on a Wednesday night when most DJs were making 100, 150 bucks. But nobody had ever seen this before. So I was doing 3 or 4 nights a week at various places, coming in, setting up all this stuff, not being a DJ. I just wanted to give a different experience.
Hmm.
Well, one day I get a call from a company. They found us on the web, and it was just, I figured I called myself Game Show America, but I'm thinking we're probably going to stay in Wisconsin. It was a company out of Florida. And I'm like, oh, well, this is kind of cool. And so what do I need to do to do this? And they said, well, we want to show that, it's a lot of interaction, involves a room of 300 people, try to get as many people involved as possible. I'm like, yeah, I got this. And so I sent them a quote, more than I'd ever, and I could tell you it was $5,500. I had never made that much money in all my life. And I waited about 3 or 4 days, and they called me back and they said, please send us a contract. And I freaked out because I'm like, are you kidding me? Somebody actually, well, when I finally got down there and talked with them, and we did the show, and I still have a video of that show, the very first show.
Hmm.
You got to have a record of it, so I still have it on videotape somewhere. Um,
Wow.
But the other two people that we competed against, one was significantly cost less, and one cost significantly more. The company that cost significantly less, they're not even in business anymore. The company that cost more was a CBS game show host named Art James, and he was $10,000. And they said, you literally fit right in the middle, and you allowed us to customize the content where the other two would not allow that. And I'm like, oh,
Wow.
it's teaching, right? I'm just teaching now for a corporate audience.
Yeah.
So what I did in my classroom, I did for them, and the place absolutely loved it. And I'm like, I think we got something here, and this year is 30
So
years,
so
and we've never looked back.
that was kind of your breakthrough moment, I
That
guess.
was the breakthrough. Yeah.
Wow. Were there ever times though in that first 4 or 5 years where you were having doubts? I mean, were there times where you thought maybe I should go back to teaching or maybe this isn't going to work out?
Yes. I was not, my folks were not necessarily initially supportive of this.
Mm,
My dad, especially, he knew I was a great teacher, and he's like, "Man, I can't believe you're giving up a good teaching job to chase this pipe dream." And I'm like, just believe me on this. I'm feeling this with every ounce of my being that I can do this. It's something that didn't exist before. It exists now. So let's just go with this. And I kept getting, and I think it was more so in fun, but I mean, it still hurt a little bit. Like I just want my dad to feel proud. And then I had a big show and I hired him as my PowerPoint guy. So I hired my dad, and the show, it was up in Canada. It was at the Banff Springs Hotel, which is like a Scottish castle. And we did a
wow.
show for Lennox International. It was the CEO was retiring, and the guy that plays the Lennox guy was we did a Hollywood Squares type game. He was in the center square, and he was the actor that plays him on TV. And my dad was the PowerPoint guy, and he actually instilled all this PowerPoint on me before PowerPoint ever existed. That's a whole nother story.
So
But
cool.
at the end, they hand me a check, and my dad says, "You mind if I take a look?" And I showed it to him. And he's like, "Holy shit." And I'm like, "That's just the other half, Dad." And he's like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I got half down and half due," which was more than he made. The total was more than he made in a year when he retired from his job. And
So that sold them on what you were doing.
I'm like, "Do I have your approval now?" And that's when he said, we're sitting at dinner. He goes, "I'm really proud of you, son." And I have a picture of that, and I want to remember that because my dad passed away a handful of years ago.
Right.
But I got that approval that I was seeking, and I think a lot of kids do that. But that told me, it validated that what I was doing was right, because up until that point, even though I knew I was doing good, if somebody puts an ounce of doubt in your head, you're kind of like, "Oh, maybe I'm not doing the right thing."
Yeah.
Um, and then you'd have the roller coaster of building a company. You'd have really good times and slow times, and it was this roller coaster ride. And then as the years go on, it all kind of balances itself out.
Right. So
So
then the first decade of this century, the 2000s, was when your company was really growing, I guess, right? Is that when you started hiring people?
yeah, I actually became an S Corp a long time ago because we were doing so many shows. We had so many vehicles. I needed so many people to drive. I had multiple programmers, et cetera. And I had a big shop with all of our stuff in it. And we had this huge board, like, this is coming in, this is going out. And there was just all of this action going on. Um, I needed to be able to start, bringing on a staff that could do that. So I had an amazing staff of people. As time went on, though, and I like, you know what, I could keep growing, but I didn't want to get too big because I've seen what happens to companies that got too big. So I intentionally started scaling back, but increasing
Wow.
the caliber of what we could do.
Oh,
And so I ended up hiring an accountant at the time who, I didn't know it at the time, but was taking me for quite a ride. And so once I finally figured all that stuff out, I no longer became, I basically, when we made the move from Wisconsin to Las Vegas, I ceased the S Corp, and I just became a sole proprietor LLC again, which is what I still am to this day.
hmm.
And most of the people that are working with me are a lot of the same people that were in the past, but they all do their own things. They all have their own companies. And so everybody for me is now 1099 because they essentially have their own jobs, and I bring them in, for this or for that. It's not to the extent, but probably jumping ahead a little bit, but COVID changed a lot of that because
Yeah,
we've actually
we'll get
changed
to that.
the
We'll get to
scope.
that in a bit. Yeah.
So yeah, but I did hire a lot of people in that early part, only to pare it down a little bit later.
And in that time period, we're talking about like 2000 to 2010, when you guys had a gig, for lack of a better word, were you primarily the game show host, or were you hiring people in to host the games?
I was the primary host. I had Scotty, who was my right hand of the company at the time. He was an amazing, still to this day is an amazing host and host for me. But we also did a lot of celebrity work. So we worked with Ross Schaefer, Alan Thicke, John O'Hurley, Wink Martindale, etc., Chuck Woolery, all the greats. We've worked with them. So once that door got open for us, that's when we picked up Alan Thicke's second honeymoon game show in Vegas. And it was easy to sell a game show when you've got a celebrity at the helm. So it was a lot of fun.
What's it like working with those people like Alan Thicke and John O'Hurley, who was the Mr. Peterman on the Seinfeld show? What's it like working with people of that caliber? Was that kind of like a humbling experience for you? I mean, when you met those people, do they turn out to be just like regular people, or do they have some kind of celebrity ethos?
Uh, the celebrity ethos is there, but they can turn it on and off if that makes sense. Meaning that when I first met, I remember when I first met these three particular celebrities, I was terrified actually to meet them. I met Alan Thicke, I met Bob Eubanks, and then I met John O'Hurley. And when I met them, I did not realize that they were hosting said event. They needed game show stuff. And they're like, well, we don't need you to host. We already got somebody. So I get there, get everything set up. And then the celebrity walks in the room like, oh my God, it's really this person. Okay, here's, America's Dad on TV, Jay Peterman. And he can, God, John can turn on Peterman
At a
that quick.
moment's notice, yeah.
But then as you start to work with them and get to know them, you realize they're just normal, everyday people. They're on stage and then they're off stage. So when we have a green room or we're, in a club or something like that, that's not a lot of public around, you get to see who these people really are. One of my favorite hosts that I work with is Bruce Campbell. He's from the Evil Dead series.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
Bruce Campbell in person, on TV, in a movie, is the same guy. He is absolutely genuine to his core. I love working with him, and he doesn't change for anybody. He's unapologetically Bruce, and I love him for that. Um, Alan Thicke was amazing on stage and off stage. We had conversations that just about stuff that normal human beings talk about. John O'Hurley and I do the same thing. We had a show in Providence last year about this time, and just sitting down for dinner with him, it's just stuff that everyday normal friends talk about. And people
Right.
are like, oh my gosh, it's a celebrity, but they're real people too. So while they know how to play to an audience, and they definitely know how to play on stage, at their core, they're just. I mean, Bob Eubanks. Last time I worked with him on stage is Bob Eubanks, the Newlywed Game host. Off stage, he is a lovable grandpa. Love him.
Wow, that's great. So by 2010, you'd worked with some of these A-listers, and you'd been in the majority of states performing. You'd been outside the country performing. But then in 2010, you also start a kind of fundraising mission with Game Show America. You start helping companies raise money, and let's talk about that for a little bit, Matt. How much money have you helped companies raise since 2010?
Since we started doing fundraisers, over $100 million for organizations.
That's absolutely incredible. And how did that start?
It's really, I didn't think we were going to be good at it. We ended up having an event. It was just a trivia event for a local church. And it was a fundraiser for the church. They said, well, you know what? Let's have some fun with people. They called it Family Fun Night, Family Unity Night. And they said, we're going to do this game show. And then at one point during the show, They were auctioning off some things. And the pastor of the church came up and he goes, I made a cake. And I'm like, okay. I said, so where would he start? He goes, I don't know. He said, it took me 2 hours. He goes, let's start the bidding at $10. And so I'm not an auctioneer by any stretch. So I'm like, well, let's fake it till you make it, right? And so I started auctioning off this cake. The whole place was so engrossed in this. By the time we sold that cake, we sold it for $1,100. And he could not believe it. He could not believe. He's like, I cannot believe you did that. Well, this became an annual thing to raise money for this church, and it just kept snowballing. And I'm like, I think I'm good at this. Well, one year we got, because I said, well, let's do fundraising. Let's throw it in there as something that we do, not really expecting it to go there. And I got a call from the Texas Rangers. And now this is prior to 2010. 2010 actually is when we really went into it full bore. So 2003, we got a call from the Texas Rangers baseball team, and they said, we're doing an event. We did an event last year. It's called the Triple Play Game Show Spectacular, but we didn't have any professional game show people. We kind of PowerPointed the whole thing. Would you be interested in coming in and helping us do this? And we're going to play 3 games throughout the night. It's going to involve the ball players. It's going to be hosted by our TV and radio personalities. And, we'll invite the public in, and we've got sponsors and everything else. And I went to this event, and the Game Show Eleveness event raised, I think, $1.5 million that one night. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is insane. And so I started learning about the fundraising formulas. It's one thing to have a fundraiser, but the Texas Rangers had the players. At the time, Nolan Ryan was with them. So I get to sit at a table and talk with him firsthand. That's any baseball lover's dream. I actually got his autograph just in a random Sharpie sitting on the table. He signed something. I'm like, I can't get rid of this now. This is like a real autograph, right? But when we did these, people were so eager to jump up on stage and volunteer money to play alongside Elvis Andrews, Adrian Beltre, Prince Fielder, Jonathan Lucroy, all these amazing, players. And I'm like, wow, this is something. So let's take the players out of the equation. How can we still make money with this? So I started to refine this formula for these fundraisers. And I shared the formula with all these people who would call us about fundraising events. We did an event for a hospital in Boston at the Wang Theater. That one night made $2 million. John O'Hurley hosted that show. John was the celebrity draw. The game show was what got people to open up their pocketbooks and come on stage and play. Most people want to win a prize on a game show. Here you volunteered money to be a contestant knowing it was for a good cause. And I'm like, a game show is the perfect catalyst to do any type of fundraising. And so since then, we have been doing fundraisers all over the place. Last year, we did a huge event for the San Diego Padres at Petco Park. We were on their big Jumbotron with these games, and in 2 auction positions for the game show, raised $70,000 just from 2 bids. It was insane. We with San Diego Chargers made, I think, $10 million at their last event that we worked with them. I have never seen so much money pour in. So the game show works at a local level. When we did it for our local high school, we did 2 events on a Saturday afternoon, raised $60,000 for our local high school. For the local church, we raised $40,000. For a humane society, raised $50,000. So it's every little bit helps. And our fundraising price is as such where we know it's a fundraiser. It's not going to like break the bank to pay for us to come on in. But what we're bringing to the table is far more than just an experience. It's a recipe for success for the event, whether it's a live auction, silent auction, you name it. You've got raffles, a 50-50 raffle, all sorts of things where we've got a database of things to, like if you need cataloged auction, like you're going to have an auction, we have all those connections. So we bring to it more than just a game. We bring to it a formula for success.
And what I love about what you do, Matt, we're in this digital age and social media and whatnot, but I still think that word of mouth is still the best advertising. And I think what has happened with your company is that the word got around that you can do this.
Yep.
And right, so you had so many requests for fundraising and even non-fundraising events just by having a good reputation. Isn't that correct?
We have worked very hard at having a good reputation. It is, the two things, we do not talk about politics or religion. It's just two things. But for your organization, if you need to raise some money, every type of organization needs to raise some money for something.
Hmm.
How can I help? And you do that by doing a great job. You're doing that by being personable. Um, since and we had a website for the longest time, and actually we're going to go back to it because websites are coming back. But for the last 10 years, I haven't had to advertise. It's just been word of mouth.
Right.
I mean, we don't. I had a Facebook page, and that was it.
See, that
So
to me is the sign of a truly successful organization that does not have to have a huge advertising budget because I firmly believe if you're doing a good job, the word gets around you're doing a good job. And that's clearly what's happened in your case. Now, you mentioned COVID earlier before, and COVID was obviously horrible for any kind of live events.
yeah,
Obviously, the bulk of what your company does, and especially around 2020, was live events.
yeah,
Was there a threat of your company literally folding in the COVID period?
yes. I lost 30 plus events in one day when COVID, when the announcement came out that we're shutting things down. The phones, I mean, I was just watching the phone ring and I'm like, oh, more bad news, more bad news, more bad news. And, we've got our board of, what the projected revenue is. And I'm just erasing. And I'm like, holy crap, we're in trouble. Um, so a couple things happened. We, obviously were sidelined by that. And at first it was kind of like, well, watch this space. Maybe this kind of goes by quickly. And then when it didn't, and I'm like, all right, we're going to have to transition. Well, at the time that it happened, we were living out in Colorado. And I had started redoing all of our games because we had jumped into the casino industry in 2010 also. So
Hmm.
uh, we had written a few games and we had done some casino shows, but it wasn't really the core of our business. And I'm like, I got to keep these games going. But what if we decided, because virtual started to become a thing, the Zoom stuff and everything else, this
Right.
started to become a thing. Well, I found out that you could play a lot of the games that we were writing virtually. So casinos that couldn't necessarily open could play them virtually. So you could get, 10 or 20 people signed up. They could still play and they could still engage with your property. And I'm like, well, let's try this. Well, luckily we got our PPP and I was able to keep the programming aspect of things going because it was very minor at the time, but I actually built it up because there was no live events happening at all. And so I basically, from my treehouse in Colorado, wrote 30 video games thinking, I've always wanted to do this. This is literally the perfect opportunity. This is kind of almost coming full circle for what I
Yeah.
wanted to do when I first went to college. And we started writing these games. And we haven't stopped. We have now got 50 plus in circulation that are around casinos and marketing events, and they're customizable. We're at Potawatomi Casino in Milwaukee every single week. We have got a new
Incredible.
game. And so we have started to, instead of being a live entertainment house, we became a software house. And we decided to embrace the casinos because once COVID ends, people are going to want to get out there and these casinos are going to need something to draw people in. And what I realized is that the traditional casinos were starting to phase out, and I'll say the new form of casino was coming in, meaning if
Hmm.
it needed to be more like a video game than it did like your standard one-armed bandit that that a lot of people play. It needed to feel more like a home video game or an app video game. Well, we do apps too. So we started introducing these to our casino clients and they flocked to it. And it was
Excellent.
exactly at the right time what they needed. So I'm like, we're not going to stop. In fact, I doubled down on it. And I just put out an ad for another programmer the other day because we're starting
Wow.
to get into augmented reality stuff that's all behind the scenes now. But it really changed the course of what Game Show America is. We still do live events, and I still don't have to advertise for those because all the people that were live, because we had such a good reputation, all came back. They all came back. you know?
Incredible.
So
Incredible.
incredibly grateful for that.
Excellent. So what advice do you have for students who maybe have a entrepreneurial type of spirit or feeling, but might be a little intimidated about trying to start a business? What would you say to them?
It's it's difficult, and I say difficult meaning it's kind of mentally difficult. Like it's once you have an idea, and you start working with it, you're gonna fail. You're gonna fail far more times you're going to succeed. And I mean, and I'll just go with the games that we have. For the 50 video games we got out there, you should see the pile of dead ones that we don't. It's huge. The stuff that
Mm,
it's just not being used. And I invested time and money and hours into developing this. And after I'm like, no, just get rid of it. But you needed to go through the process to be able to do that. Now, AI helps a little bit with that now.
right.
But I'll use my daughter as an example of this. She got tired of working for people and she wanted to do her own thing. And I know she caught the bug for me because the apple didn't fall far from the tree. But there's two schools of thought with this. There's one is I want to go do, I want to go do, I want to go do. And then there's the, oh my gosh, I'm kind of afraid. Well, don't be afraid of the success when it happens, because when it happens, you've earned it, you deserve it. The curse is that I've got an idea for so many things. What's preventing me from implementing these ideas and being able to pare it down into what I know I can accomplish today or what I can accomplish soon? She's big into social media right now, which is a realm that I'm really not in. So I hired her as my social media manager at school.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
but some people are like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And I've always said, you're not going to find your passion. Your passion is going to find you. And I absolutely mean that. I did not expect this to fall into my lap the way it did. But when it does, and you feel it, and you're going to know it, it's kind of, I'll say it's a love at first sight type thing.
Yeah.
I never believed in that till I met Jody, and then well, I'm like, wow, this is for real, you know? And so once this game show thing came on, I'm like, I really like this. And it just seems to be like, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a game show. They're like, what? You know? So as weird as it may be to other people, if it makes sense to you, go for it. Because sometimes the bigger risk is not taking it.
Yes. Yes.
And so it's better, I think, to take the risk and fail and then try again because you understand where you don't want to go next time than to
Yes.
not take the risk at all. Because if you don't, you might be missing an opportunity that'd be like, holy crap, look at what just happened. And for me, that was Game Show America.
On that great note, Matt, I gotta let you go at this point. This is incredible. I will give your contact information to current students, and I know you're always willing to interact with anyone.
Happy to talk with anybody and help them out. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks so much, Tony. Take care.